episode, we have a serial entrepreneur and mentor. His mission is to democratize high-quality podcast production and empower people to share their knowledge, stories, and experiences with ease and impact. His podcast studios are fast expanding to Singapore, Saudi, and wider afield, with partnerships ranging from Ceph and Gym Nation, to name a few. Always humble, forever smiling, and probably the tallest entrepreneur I know, Vuk, welcome to the FabGXC podcast.
It's my absolute pleasure, Fari.
Thank you for giving me your time. I know we don't have a lot of time because this is a shorter time frame we've got to record, but I want to get right into it. So you've started podcast studios as your, let's say, passion, but you haven't just started recently. You've been doing this for quite a while. So tell me, how did you get to create Poddster Studios?
So for a long time I was asking myself a question, or I was sort of wandering around trying to get to the bottom of what am I passionate about? And I felt lost, because truly I felt like, dude, you're not passionate about anything. I'm not. So I've been in software and technology for previous 10 years, and now I've been in media for the last few years. But I can't say that technology or media or necessarily even podcasts or podcast studios are my passion. And because of that, I was kind of feeling lost. Because you know what I say, the only way to have that eventual success and build something massive and big is if you work on something that you're passionate about, right? You need that passion, but how do you find passion? That's probably the most difficult question. But then I realized that actually my passion is not in any of these specific industries. My passion is in building things, no matter what I build. Whether I build a business, a podcast, or my olive tree at home. As long as the olive tree is growing I feel satisfied. So when I realized what my passion is, it helped me a lot more navigate and focus on things in business. So when I started the Change Officer podcast with Ivan back in 2019, I was not necessarily passionate about podcasts. Actually, it was completely opposite thing. I'm an introvert by nature. I'm not really someone who's going to go out there on the stage.
I did not have that for you. Okay.
I'm hiding it brilliantly.
Very well. You're masking it perfectly.
So when we started the podcast, basically, we were building a tool that will help us connect with the people that we wanted in our network in a better way. So the Change Officer was born, and it worked really well for us. We met some incredible people that completely changed the trajectories of our both personal and business lives. And then after being exposed to that industry of podcasting for some time, we recognized that there is actually a big gap in the whole infrastructure production part, and that for anyone to produce a show, it takes a lot of energy. And because of that, not a lot of people are even reaching to the point of realizing the power of having your own podcast.
Correct.
Because to realize the power, you actually need to produce it for some time, and only after a while you start being blown away by the impact that podcast is making, and then you never want to stop. So we decided to start Poddster, which is basically a network of podcast studios that are offering world-class production at a very efficient and seamless way, and basically bringing the power of podcasting to anyone. So the production stopped being the barrier. And yeah, since then we've been really on a crazy journey. We're opening in Singapore in 10 days. We have 7 studios in Dubai at this point. We'll be heading to Riyadh, and I'm really, really genuinely in love with the business and how the business is coming along.
Beautiful. You've created something which you've now understood is where your focus, your drive, your commitment is. But I want to get to the challenges you faced. You had to overcome a lot of challenges to get to where you are now. So can you tell me what was your hardest challenge that you had to overcome, and how did you do it?
So my entrepreneurial journey started straight after graduating from college. So it was 2014. I literally finished my last exam. I was called up by my business partner Veljko. He was like, man, I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to set up a software development business. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, I don't have anything better to do, to be honest. So let's give it a shot. I told my parents I'm off to Dubai. We're going to start a business. And I'm sure that at that stage, they were probably thinking, yeah, it's
What
going
is
to
he
be
doing?
It's going to be an episode. He'll be back soon. And that's how I got exposed to entrepreneurship and building and running businesses without absolutely any previous experience of running a business. The number one mistake, if it can even be called mistake, that we made was jumping into an unknown territory without enough mentorship and people that we can learn from. So 2 of us together with 5 of other partners in the business. So yes, there were 7 of us business partners. Mistake number 2. Got into an unknown territory of building a business in a completely new market, trying to build a business from ground up. And we've been on the journey since then. The business is still operational. We didn't manage to build it into a massive business, but we learned a lot of lessons. We ended up being in 3 different countries, so we learned one of the big lessons that we learned is that you need to establish the chain of command and the responsibilities between especially business partners. What we did, everyone was sort of responsible for everyone, so we couldn't hold accountable any of the business partners. There was me in Dubai, Veljko in Singapore, another 3 in Belgrade. Everyone was doing their best, but because we didn't have that clear roles and responsibilities, we couldn't hold accountable any of us, and everyone felt they're doing the right thing, whereas nobody was doing the right thing.
So there's no structure.
There was no structure, yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2, having a defined product and the market that you want to address with that product. You know what they say? You don't need sales if you do a good marketing, and you don't need marketing if you have a good product.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that you clearly articulate what your product is and be able to articulate that very efficiently with anyone that you get a chance to meet, because that will accelerate your sales, because everyone will understand who you are and what you're selling. What we were at the time, software development company. We do everything. We do digital marketing, software development, mobile apps, web apps, digital transformation, workshops, design thinking. We were so many different things. So if someone would meet me and I just throw everything at them, they can't remember me as someone who owns a network of podcast studios. You need a podcast, you talk to Vuk now. Which we did really well with Poddster. Poddster is very now focused and recognized as someone that does podcast and podcast only, and it's very easy to remember that.
Yeah.
So I think that's another lesson, but obviously there is like a lot. We will probably need a series of episodes. And I
told you, this is a 15-minute, and I'm like, oh my God, I've already asked you like just one question, and I want 30 other questions to roll off from this one, because it is such an interesting journey you've been on with so many learnings, and you've applied those learnings, which is what a lot of people don't do. They just go through the process of making mistakes, failures, and they don't actually understand that if you learn the lesson, you can apply it to the next business or the next venture you start, and it'll make the process a lot easier.
100%. And one of the things that we did as a part of that business is a venture building studio. So we would help early stage founders who don't understand tech to actually build the tech side, and they would ask us, okay, how many exits did you have, or how many successful businesses did you build? Actually, my answer would be, to be honest, none.
Yeah.
But what we can bring to table is 1,000 things that you shouldn't do because we did them and we failed.
Which is, if not more valuable than having a successful business, because what you learn to avoid will save other people time and money.
So I think as an entrepreneur, as you evolve, there are people who manage to build something from the get-go and from the first shot, partially due to their skills, partially due to luck. But any entrepreneur that has been around for a while will tell you that it's just a long-term game, and the more you're in it, the more you understand business. And once you start understanding business, it doesn't matter what you approach building, what the industry, you'll understand how to put the building blocks together so it starts working.
Beautiful. So this is going to be crazy, but it's the last question already because we don't have that much time. So what's your golden rule as a founder?
My golden rule as a founder? I have this philosophy of building systems. So there is one book that influenced my thinking a lot. It's called E-Myth, Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael Gerber. And it talks about how to build a business that operates based on the system and that you can scale 1,000 times, delivering exactly the same service every time. It's inspired by McDonald's, among others. How do you build a business that you own, that doesn't own you? So how do you build a business that you can walk away from and the business continues to deliver the same result every time? How do you own customer satisfaction, and how do you own the result of your engagement and not leave it at sort of a fortune of every particular project, whether it will go well or not? Because of my previous business and a lot of episodes where the clients walked away unhappy, I was obsessed with how do you build a business that is going to deliver that satisfaction by design, not by chance. So when we started working on Poddster, that was my initial idea. Okay, how can we make a system where everyone knows what they're working, everyone knows their responsibilities, and if everyone does their job well, there is no other outcome than having a customer that is satisfied. And even if they're not, there is a system that is going to correct that and turn them into a satisfied customer. And I think a lot about it is building these mechanisms inside of a business that are going to, I call it like if you think about the electrical switchboard, at home.
Yeah.
So when the power goes off, one of them pops.
Yep.
So you need something like that in your business that is going to immediately, when something goes wrong, something is going to alert you that things are not going well, that you need to look at it. So if you approach the business like that, you create clear systems, and then you teach your team to operate within that system and gamify to a certain degree, so it makes it exciting for them to play it as well. You can actually walk away from your business and the business will grow for itself. So I think that's how I like to approach things. I don't like to wing things. I really like to build them brick by brick.
Create consistency, create certainty that this system will work.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant process to do.
Not leave it to the interpretation, because even someone walking into the studio today, there needs to be a process how you welcome someone in the studio.
Yeah.
Yesterday I spoke to a friend who works for Emirates. They actually have a hospitality training. How do you provide excellent hospitality by design, not by interpretation of individuals? Because if your business starts depending on individuals and their talents, you can have a good business, but you can go long and you can build it into a massive business.
Correct. If you have processes, at least then you have more of a probability of scaling it, because there is a playbook. There is a manual to follow. It's the only way
to scale it.
Yeah.
Whoever tries to scale businesses understands how difficult it is to solve a problem, the same problem on multiple fronts. Think of, if you take Poddster Studios as an example, solving a problem for one podcast studio versus solving a problem for 10 podcast studios around the world, the same problem. So make sure to build that prototype of a business well, structure it well, solve most of the problems on that prototype, and then start scaling and replicating what you have.
Beautiful. Well, Vuk, you know me, I can't stop talking to you or listening to you, because there is just so much that I can learn from you as well. But
I
know, but I'm like, you know what? What I want to do is at least keep that as a teaser. And I thank you for sharing your story. For me, it's like dipping our toe in. So I want to then take a little bit more of a deeper dive into it later and get you in for a full episode.
I would love that.
So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Already in just this tiny little amount of time, you've shared so much. And I think it's going to help a lot of people to understand the importance of building a process and why you should learn from the mistakes you're making so that you can help your business thrive. So again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fari. Yeah, I always, lately I've been asked for advice or, to get on a podcast, obviously, because we have thousands of them. And to be honest, I still feel I'm not the one to give any advice, and I think that people shouldn't give advices that easily. It's really about sharing the experiences.
Exactly.
I can tell you what didn't work for me, and then if you can learn something from that, I think that's valuable. But whether I have a formula on how to do things, I really don't have.
You know what the beauty of what you're saying is? That you are sharing your insights, your perspective, your first-hand experience on the things that you do that you wouldn't repeat. And that in itself is a golden nugget for someone who hasn't even taken that step. They're too fearful of failure that maybe they can learn from you. So I think it's not so much about the advice, it's more about your insights. Sure. So thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that we can develop this a little bit further and have more time to go into this, because I know there's so much more that I can learn from what you've created, and people watching the podcast can as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vuk.
It was a
Really
pleasure,
appreciate
Fari.
it. So that's our session done. Tune in for the next one.